So there's this guy, Kenneth Whyte, who decides to write a long opinion piece in Canada's national newspaper, the Globe and Mail. And there he pointed his long, white, accusing finger at libraries, who've for far too long been free to do as they please without critical scrutiny, free to hamstring independent bookstores, to cripple struggling publishing houses and pickpocket the money straight out of authors' pockets. Libraries have been for far too long able to do this with complete disregard with the help of public funding. They are a massively unchallenged force in the book world, and something must be done. So the math is there. Whyte breaks down the numbers for the rest of us plebes. In the United States, Americans borrowed 2.16 billion items from their libraries, 75% of which have been books. Now, using a handy little calculator that the Massachusetts Library Association itself used to show patrons how much money they save every time they borrow a book instead of buying it, he estimates that Americans have saved $30.4 billion in a single year by borrowing books, which is actually greater than the sum total of revenues of every single U.S. publishing house, which last year made $25.9 billion. That is an outrageously brazen theft of author royalties. And then there's a lot of hand-wavy justifications and concessions under the guise of reasonableness. Yes, libraries pay a premium for the books that they lend out. And yes, not all books that are taken out by patrons are adult fiction, yada yada. What it amounts to is that Canadians last year have saved hundreds of millions of dollars by borrowing books from the library. Or, more accurately, card-carrying vultures have robbed authors of their God-given profits, and libraries are absolutely gleeful of this highway robbery. And Whyte takes a special offense to an advertisement that the Toronto Public Library ran. Black Friday deals, 100% off all books, print, digital, audio. Enjoy the deals every day at the TPL. Ugh, the nerve. All this while independent bookstores are shutting down and laying off workers. Now, don't get Whyte wrong. I mean, he loves libraries. He remembers his first library card being more important to him than his driver's license. Libraries for authors are an important place to do research and a great venue to meet audiences. They are an important civic institution. They provide courses on computer literacy, job hunting, and immigrant settlement, not to mention providing a safe space. But what Whyte really gets pissed off is the fact that libraries peddle in entertainment. To Whyte, it's outrageous that libraries will carry dozens of copies of 50 Shades of Grey and a mere handful of copies of The Red and the Black from a 9th century French realist. And that's where he draws the line. Libraries rely on pimping free entertainment to people who can otherwise afford to buy them. Libraries need to get out of the entertainment business entirely. Or start levying fees for the luxury of borrowing books, something along the lines of a Netflix monthly fee. Or restrict access so that libraries don't have 60 copies of the latest Stephen King, but maybe only 6, forcing patrons to wait months before they get their copy. For far too long, libraries have offered up free entertainment to people who can otherwise afford it, and they need to get out of that business now. Well, I don't like it. The immediate knee-jerk reaction is that this is nothing more than the entitled whining of some privileged white guy bitching at libraries because his publishing house is struggling and no one's lining up to buy copies of his biography of William Randolph Hearst. And at least Whyte avoids the argument of library irrelevance that was making the rounds some 5 years ago. People like Ariel Bissett and Forbes magazine were wondering why we even need libraries in this world that contains Amazon, ebooks, and the internet. And the response back then was swift and brutal. The tune has changed, but the response has been just as swift. In her role as chair of the Canadian Urban Libraries Council, as well as being the CEO of the library here in town, Mary Chevreau wonders why attack libraries now. Libraries and independent bookstores have coexisted for decades. And if Whyte wants to look at a dark specter looming on the horizon, he needs look no further than Amazon. In 2018, they were responsible for 42% of all book sales in the United States. And their move into ebooks and audio, as well as publishing itself, should have independents and publishing houses justifiably worried. Amazon effectively controls the market, can undercut prices, and direct reader attention. Even without libraries, independent bookstores would struggle against megacorporations like Amazon, to say nothing of the increasing amount of books purchased at big box stores like Walmart and Costco. But what about the poor authors? Well, here in Canada, we have something called the public lending right, which has distributed payments to over 17,000 Canadian authors for compensation for having their books available at the library. Since its inception in 1986, it has distributed over $275 million, and authors can receive royalties for up to 25 years per title. Well, it's not insignificant, but all that math, frankly, is a little hard to parse. I mean, maybe authors make a bit more money if libraries charged more per book or charged a monthly fee for the right to borrow books, but frankly, I just don't think bookish consumption is a zero-sum game. And privatizing libraries because you're upset that your wealthy friends are borrowing books instead of buying them does seem a bit much. With libraries closed during COVID, book sales remained steady, but what's odd is back in July when libraries began opening up and offering more and more services, our local library had book holds available for pickup. We didn't see a precipitous decline in book sales. And in fact, in the United States, book sales were up 16% over the same time last year. But I'm not arguing for the dollar trade-off between library borrows and book sales. I'm sure Whyte thinks his arguments are eminently reasonable, but frankly, I am always going to fall on the side of libraries. Libraries are struggling for funding and always working to stay relevant in today's changing society. Of course, they're not happy about the slow erosion of their ability to attract readers' attention, so they are going to fight tooth and nail against any sort of restrictions against, say, ebooks or access to new bestsellers. Because frankly, I don't think hamstringing libraries somehow increases the revenue in authors' pockets. If you shut libraries down tomorrow, I think all you would do is create a boom for secondhand bookstores and the creation of personal lending libraries. I don't buy into this notion that for every book not borrowed somehow equals a book bought. I want libraries to remain strong and well-funded. Whyte doesn't care in his essay at all, but I do. I think libraries create readers, and readers buy books. Libraries introduce readers to new genres and authors. Libraries provide an opportunity to venture out of your comfort zone. So maybe you borrow Leviathan Wakes at the library, but there's a good chance if you enjoy that, you end up buying Caliban's War at the bookstore. And frankly, I don't think libraries are luring an inordinate amount of people from not buying the latest new release. And when it comes to the collective interest of the internet, I mean, books are a rounding error. There are more people interested in makeup tutorials. We hardly count for a significant amount of viewers when you put us up against music, movies, and video games, which are all available at the library, frankly. So libraries create readers, and we need all the readers we can get. Okay, lightning round. Libraries rock because they offer a place for the preservation of local heritage. Our local library has photos from the turn of the century, back when we were rum running for Al Capone during Prohibition or sending bottles of whiskey to the Queen. It provides remote and rural outposts the opportunity to have books. It is an indoor safe space for everyone to loiter or linger, regardless of your social status or ethnic background, and there is no promise of some sort of future exchange of monies. And during COVID, as parents struggle with whether they're keeping their kids at home or sending them to school, libraries are going to be an invaluable resource for many to learn about civic government, about history, technology, and science. And libraries are in this sort of unenviable position. As the economy takes a downturn, the need for libraries goes up while funding decreases. Now, when it comes to our local library, it's not just about the books. We have a community garden that teaches youth in our community about sustainable communities, nutritional literacy, as well as gardening, and the kids get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. We have beehives up on the roof that help with local pollination and create discussions around local ecosystems. We have ample study spaces, sadly in disuse because of COVID. We also have a large meeting area where you can grab a coffee, grab a book, sit, stay a while, also in disuse. We have incredible musical studios with musical instruments free for library patrons to borrow, as well as incredible studios for burgeoning podcasters. We have 3D printers, we have musical instruments to let out, as well as ample public spaces for use. We even let patrons borrow the internet, hotspots that have unlimited internet access regardless of where you are in Canada. So clearly our local library is killing it. Anyway, arguments like Whyte are nothing new. This is just nothing more than a self-indulgent whine for the sake of all authors in a national newspaper. I mean, the rest of us have to rely on Facebook to express our wingnut opinions. And really, what did Whyte expect? That on the strength of this opinion column, that suddenly libraries would shut down and people would be lining up to buy new copies of his biography of Hoover? I mean, God, it must be nice to have a national newspaper to air your grievances. How about this? In light of COVID, library funding gets a much-needed boost as an essential service for a growing number of struggling families trying to navigate this new normal. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below what you love about your library. Otherwise, that is it for me this week. I hope you have a great week of reading, and we'll talk to you soon.